Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. In Surah Al-Mutaffifin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna al-abrara lafi na'im, that the righteous will be in amazing bliss. It's talking about paradise. And then after describing paradise and Jannah a little bit, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. And for that, let the competitors compete. Meaning people, generally people are a little bit competitive by nature. Some people a little bit less, some people a little bit more. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Jannah, and then He says, those people who enjoy competition, who like to outdo others in things, which is natural for them, says you guys should be competing for something that's good. And the best thing you can compete for is paradise, getting to Jannah. So this idea of competition for good is relevant to Ramadan, because everybody sets their goals for the month of Ramadan. And what happens is, who are you supposed to be competing against? Well, the first and most important person you should be competing against is yourself. How do you compete against yourself? Well, the first thing is you look at what you did last Ramadan or previous Ramadans, and you say, you know what? This was my high score in the past. I got this many times prayer in the masjid, this much dua, this many extra, charity, whatever you were doing, kind of like look at your score or what you were able to accomplish in that Ramadan previously and say, let me try to beat my high score. So competing with yourself is one of the most important things. The second is to go and look around and say, maybe you have a friend who can be your accountability partner and say, hey, you know what, I'm planning on doing this in Ramadan. What are you doing? You look at their schedule and say, compared to you, let's try and check in with each other and see if we can meet our goals together. So that helps as well. But the last thing to keep in mind is you don't want to set unrealistic expectations whenever you're trying to compete, even with yourself. Because you know what? If you look at somebody else and they're doing so much and they're spending time in the masjid and they're reading Quran and they're doing dua, doing so many things, but you work 3 jobs, that person doesn't. You have to drive all the way to downtown LA every single day, that person doesn't. Understand your reality is going to be different. Maybe your own reality compared to last year's reality is different. You were able to work from home last year. This year you're not able to. You have to be in the office. So you have to make sure that you set your expectations realistically. Otherwise, you're gonna go into a downward spiral of saying, I just can't do it. I can't keep up with that person, or I can't keep up with what's wrong with me. Something's going on. Everyone needs to understand their own circumstance. So when we compete, we should be competing for good. We should be racing towards good. At the same time, we need to be realistic. We need to see what we can potentially do. And we know that you do as much as you actually are able to do within your capacity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us for that, inshaAllah. We ask Allah to forgive us this Ramadan and accept our prayers and accept our fasting. Ameen wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum.